Have you ever stopped, really, truly stopped, to ask yourself why you work so hard? Why you wake up early, exhaust yourself day after day, and then walk into a home where your presence seems barely tolerated? Why you feel profoundly alone even though you're in a relationship? Let me ask you something difficult, something you might not want to hear. What if the person you're working to provide for the one you're building a life with is actually the one who's quietly breaking you down? This isn't a dramatic exaggeration. This is a painful reality for far more men than you'd ever imagine. And the silence around this issue isn't because it's rare. It's because male pain isn't fashionable. And female harm is often seen as unthinkable in the narrative we've all been taught. Christina Hoff. Sommers, a philosopher who spent years analyzing gender discourse, warned us about this profound imbalance. In a culture that aggressively spotlights female victimhood, male suffering has become invisible. She described this as selective empathy, where one gender's wounds are broadcast, grieved, and acted upon, while the others are buried, dismissed, or even ridiculed. But that wound, you carry the emotional pressure, the manipulation, the feeling that nothing you do is ever truly enough. It's real. It's not just how women are. It's not normal. And often it's abuse. Most men never recognize the trap because it doesn't look like a trap. Female abuse doesn't always show up as overt violence or yelling. Sometimes it shows up as one expectation without gratitude. It manifests as criticism without compassion. And it often comes dressed as control without accountability. Because our society has fed you a myth that all women are nurturing, harmless, and morally superior, you never see it coming. But you need to see it now. You might believe that because you're successful, confident, and respected at work, you couldn't possibly be one of those men, a victim of abuse. But abuse doesn't always aim to keep you home isolated. Sometimes it drives you to work yourself into the ground to become more financially successful, to chase external achievements not for love, but for control. Many abusive women don't actually want a true partner. They want an asset, a resource, a workhorse they can direct and diminish so long as the money keeps flowing, so long as the image is maintained. And here's the hardest truth to swallow: she may not love you. She may only love what you do for her. Christina Hoff. Sommers, whose insights are so critical here, taught that gender discourse must be rooted in reality, not ideology. And the reality is that some women absolutely weaponize affection. They use guilt instead of fists. And they deploy silence instead of slaps. And society lets them get away with it because it utterly refuses to believe women are capable of that kind of darkness. But they are. Some men are living in financial and emotional slavery, thinking they're being noble providers. They wear their suffering like a badge of manhood, never realizing that the woman they're breaking themselves for is breaking them on purpose. I've seen a pattern repeat over and over: a man publicly admired for his achievements, a pillar in his community, secretly trapped in a relationship that was slowly draining his life force. On the outside, everything looked fine: successful career, nice house. But behind closed doors, his every move was scrutinized, his efforts never enough. He was constantly providing, fixing, apologizing, yet always met with subtle criticism or an unspoken demand for more. He believed he was simply working hard and being a good partner. But the hard truth was, he was an asset, not a beloved. His suffering was invisible because his public image was maintained, and he himself couldn't reconcile the successful man he was with, the quietly abused man he was becoming at home. You've been told that women are naturally nurturing, that they're the gentlest sex, that their influence is soft, maternal, emotionally intelligent. And while that may be true in many cases, it's this exact stereotype that shields abusive women from accountability. The most dangerous weapon is always the one you never suspect. Some women don't need to yell to dominate. They don't need to hit to harm. They rule through emotional engineering, subtly undermining you in repeated ways until your identity becomes a shadow of what it once was. If you're being constantly criticized, belittled, or made to feel like your needs are selfish, ask yourself, is that love, or is that control dressed as emotional honesty? She may say, "You're not doing enough for this family, even when you're working 60-plus hours a week," or "You're too emotional," when you finally open up about stress or pain, or "Real men don't complain," when you ask for basic respect, support, or intimacy. This isn't feedback. It's conditioning, was, and it's meant to erode your sense of self. As Christina Hoff Sommers powerfully argues, one of the most damaging consequences of modern gender politics is its refusal to acknowledge female agency in wrongdoing. While male aggression is dissected, condemned, and pathologized, female manipulation is often ignored, romanticized, or even rewarded. You've probably seen it, the woman who mocks her husband publicly, who withholds affection until she gets her way, who monitors his spending while maxing out credit cards herself. And society laughs it off, saying, "Oh, she's just strong-willed." No, she's not. She's abusive. Manipulative women don't isolate men by locking them in a room. They isolate them by draining them emotionally until they have no energy left to connect with others, especially with other women who might show them kindness or remind them of their worth. They rewrite history. They twist arguments. They gaslight you. They'll tell you your memory is faulty, your emotions are irrational, that you're just hard to love, until you start to believe that your only chance at affection is complete compliance. And here's the trap, the insidious brilliance of it. The nicer you are, the worse she gets. Because you're not being rewarded for your loyalty, you're being trained. Trained to respond to criticism with apology, to respond to coldness with gifts, to respond to distance with pursuit. She may never lay a hand on you, but every day she lays claim to your confidence, your time, your autonomy, and calls it normal. This is why men often don't recognize they're being abused, because the abuse is embedded in routine, in ritual, in what passes for love, in a culture that doesn't genuinely care about men's well-being. If you're constantly walking on eggshells in your own home, that's not stability. If you dread going home but can't explain why, that's not normal. If she dismisses your pain but demands your labor, that's not partnership, it's exploitation. And if you've accepted this as your life, then you've been lied to. You were told that being a good man meant carrying more than your share, staying silent, sacrificing everything. But being used is not a sign of love. It's a sign of ownership. You are not her servant. You are not her emotional punching bag. You are not her bank account, her handyman, her scapegoat, her babysitter, her project. You are a human being, and you deserve to be treated like one. Let's talk about what many men think they're in a partnership. You share a life, a home, maybe kids. You work hard sometimes beyond your limits because that's what a provider does. That's what love looks like, right? But what if your relationship isn't a partnership at all? What if it's a transaction you never actually agreed to? Some women don't truly want a teammate. They want a man on a leash, someone who will fund their lifestyle, absorb their moods, and shoulder the emotional labor for both of them all without expecting any reciprocity. This isn't a stereotype. This is a pattern repeated silently in homes across the world. Christina Hoff Sommers warned of a culture that pushes men into unquestioned responsibility while simultaneously excusing women from any real scrutiny. When women exploit men, it's often reframed as empowerment. When men speak out, they're labeled weak or bitter. Here's the brutal truth. If you're sacrificing your health, your peace, and your dreams while she sacrifices nothing, you are not in a relationship. You're in a contract you never negotiated. She tells you, you need to work harder. You should be more emotionally available. You don't do enough around the house. You aren't being a real man. Meanwhile, she doesn't contribute financially. She doesn't initiate intimacy. She treats your time as expendable and your fatigue as weakness. And the worst part, you start to agree with her. You push yourself harder believing that your burnout is a sign of strength, that your exhaustion is proof of love. You confuse suffering with commitment. But here's what you must understand. Love does not drain, it restores. Real partnership nourishes both people. If only one person is thriving, it is not love. It is parasitism. Do you remember who you were before you had to ask permission to rest, before you felt the constant need to prove your worth every single day just to get a smile? Before you believed that the only way to keep peace was to silence your own needs? This isn't what relationships are meant to be. But society doesn't teach you that. It teaches you that your job is to give, to absorb, to endure. And so you give, you endure, you empty yourself, until one day you don't even recognize yourself. And when you finally break down emotionally, physically, financially, do you think she'll thank you for all those years of quiet suffering? Or will she look at you the way you look at a tool that's finally worn out? Because that's how abusive women see men, not as partners, but as utilities, useful until you're not. And that's why you need to stop and take stock. Not because you're weak, but because you matter. Your happiness matters. Your rest matters. Your voice matters. You are not here to be mined until empty. You are here to be valued, respected, and cared for, not as a function, but as a man. I observed a relationship that from the outside looked perfectly normal. They had a nice house, 2 cars, successful careers. But as I got to know the man, I saw the quiet toll. He was constantly working, always trying to earn enough to keep her happy. She rarely offered praise, but her criticisms were endless. If he expressed fatigue, she'd say he wasn't strong enough or committed to the family. It was a deeply imbalanced transaction. He was the perpetual provider, the emotional absorber, and the financial backer, with almost no reciprocation. He recognized the parasitic nature of it when he started to break down physically. He was constantly ill, perpetually exhausted, and utterly miserable. The illusion of partnership was shattered when he realized he was essentially a paid servant, not a loved husband. Let's talk about control in the name of love. They tell you love should make you feel free, right? But what if love has actually become a leash? What if affection is just the language of your obedience? You might be told you're loved, but the moment you question her, confront her, or set a boundary, that love evaporates. And in its place comes silence, guilt, or punishment. This is not love. This is control. Abusive women don't always raise their voices. They raise your doubts. They manipulate through thy selective affection, through conditional approval, and through profound psychological distortion. They'll tell you, I just want what's best for us. You're the one ruining everything. If you love me, you'll do this one thing, and then another and another, until your entire life revolves around keeping her calm, keeping her happy, keeping her from erupting. And if you ever pull back, if you ever dare to say no, you'll notice something terrifying. She doesn't want your boundaries. She wants your surrender. Christina Hoff Sommers often criticized how gender discourse has eliminated moral symmetry. That means we judge men's behavior by moral standards, but explain away women's behavior through feelings, trauma, or context. That's how abusive women escape accountability. She's not controlling, she's anxious. She's not withholding, she's empowered. She's not cruel, she's just emotional. But let's stop lying to ourselves. If a man shamed his partner's desires, isolated her from friends and family, controlled her access to money, and threatened her reputation, he'd be labeled abusive instantly. So why, when a woman does the exact same things, do we call it difficult or emotional immaturity? That's the manipulation. That's the cover. She is using the cultural script of female innocence to mask intentional harm. Think about your life right now. Are you constantly seeking her approval? Walking on eggshells? Performing for a moment of peace? Are your needs always framed as unreasonable? Is her love only accessible when you're submissive? That's not a relationship. That's a regime. She might not use her hands. She doesn't have to. She uses your sense of duty. She uses your fear of conflict. And she uses the devastating fact that society won't believe you. This is what Christina Hoff Sommers was warning us about. When we make womanhood a shield against criticism, we allow abusive women to operate with impunity. You've been led to believe that you're the strong one, the protector, the provider. But who is protecting you? Who is making sure you're okay? Because love is not supposed to demand that you shrink, break, and disappear. You are not her emotional punching bag. You are not her hostage in a house you paid for. If your love is being turned into a leash, if your giving is met with endless taking, if your peace only comes after submission, you are being abused. And the moment you name it, the healing begins. This is the horrifying realization for many men. The system is not built to believe you. You might be thinking, okay, maybe some of this sounds familiar. Maybe I've been manipulated. Maybe this explains the exhaustion, the resentment, the loneliness I can't put into words. But still there's that voice inside you saying, I can handle it. This is just life. I'm a man. I'm strong. And that voice, that's not strength talking. That's conditioning. That's the world teaching you to suppress your pain, to preserve her comfort. You've been told to man up, not to make a scene, not to cry. You've been programmed to believe that abuse only counts when it's violent, when it's visible, when it leaves marks. But emotional abuse leaves scars on the inside. And they don't fade just because no one else can see them. Beyond your time, your money, your body, there's a reason abusive women attack something even deeper, your identity. They want to dismantle the version of you that is independent, confident, and free-thinking, and replace it with a version that is obedient, guilt-ridden, and constantly chasing their approval. And they do it methodically. They mock your interests. They belittle your ambitions. They insult your masculinity, but only just enough to leave you second-guessing yourself. They chip away at your self-respect one subtle insult at a time so that you become easier to direct, easier to guilt, easier to own. You begin to adapt to their moods like you're walking through a minefield. You measure your words. You regulate your tone. You play the role of peacemaker, not partner. But the more you adjust to survive, the more of yourself disappears. This is not a misunderstanding. This is not personality conflict. This is psychological erosion. And it's happening to men in suits, in uniforms, in steel-toed boots in every class and corner of society. Christina Hoff Sommers warned that when we strip men of their right to name their own suffering, we create a culture where men serve and women are served, where men are burdened with duty and guilt, while women are absolved of responsibility even when they harm others. And that's exactly what's happening in abusive relationships. If you find yourself apologizing just to keep peace, you're not in peace. You're in a submission. If you're made to feel like your job is to protect her feelings, but no one protects yours, you're not in love. You're in servitude. What's worse is how cleverly this abuse is hidden under normal behavior. She doesn't scream. She corrects you for your own good. She doesn't insult you. She offers feedback. She doesn't sabotage your freedom. She has high standards. And you comply because you want to be a good man, a loving partner, a strong father. But when your goodness is used against you, when your loyalty is weaponized to keep you silent and small, that's no longer a relationship. That's a power imbalance disguised as love. And here's the gut-punching truth: she may never have loved you. She may have only loved the version of you that served her interests. The one that worked without rest. The one that paid without question. The one that apologized without being wrong. This is not just toxic, it's calculated. And if you've stayed because of the kids, because of guilt, because you were waiting for her to change, then you need to hear this. Clearly, change isn't coming. Not from someone who's invested in your silence. Not from someone who benefits from your suffering. What needs to change is your awareness. What needs to change is your decision to stop playing a role that's killing you. Because a man who has forgotten his worth is the easiest to control. But a man who wakes up, that's the one who becomes unstoppable. I witnessed this psychological erosion firsthand with a friend. He was a vibrant, funny, confident guy. But over time in his relationship, he became quiet, withdrawn, constantly seeking his partner's approval. Every hobby he had was subtly mocked. His ambitions were belittled as pipe dreams. She'd tell him, "You're too sensitive," or "You just don't get it," eroding his trust in his own perceptions. He was always trying to be the good man she demanded, but the more he conformed, the more of himself he lost. It was heartbreaking to watch him struggle internally to recognize this as abuse, rather than just difficulty or his own failings. He thought he was preserving peace, but he was actually sacrificing his identity peace by agonizing peace. If you've made it this far, it's because something in you already knows. Maybe you haven't admitted it fully yet, but a part of you recognizes the truth: you're not living free. You're not truly resting. You're not receiving. You're constantly giving, pouring yourself out, and it's never ever enough. Your relationship has become a full-time job with no pay, no praise, and no exit strategy. And the most dangerous part, you thought that was just what being a man meant. Let's break that lie. Being a man does not mean tolerating disrespect. It does not mean sacrificing your sanity to protect someone else's comfort. It does not mean staying in a relationship that humiliates, drains, or manipulates you. Christina Hoff Sommers said it best: "The moral standing of women must be earned like that of men." But in abusive dynamics, the woman is assumed innocent, kind, and righteous, while the man is assumed disposable. And if you accept that assumption, if you accept this role, they will write your story for you. And it ends the same way every time: broken, bitter, and discarded. But you, my friend, you can choose a different ending. You can reclaim your self-worth. You can redefine what love should truly look like for you. You can start asking yourself the hard questions you've been avoiding for years. Why do I feel so alone in my own home? Why do I feel guilty for wanting rest? Why do I fear speaking my truth? Because those questions are the cracks in the dam, and once they open, you can no longer hold back the flood of truth. No one's coming to save you. You're the one who has to say, enough. Enough to the manipulation, enough to the guilt games, enough to the emotional starvation, enough to a life where you give everything and still feel like a failure. You are not here to survive someone else's dysfunction. You are not here to bankroll someone's comfort while dying inside. You are not here to serve. You're here to live. And no, it won't be easy. You might face disbelief. You might lose people. You might have to rebuild your life from scratch, but you will finally be building your life, not a life engineered to please someone who never truly had your best interest at heart. There is strength in walking away. There is power in naming abuse for what it is, even when no one claps for you. There is honor in protecting your soul, even when the world tells you to stay silent. You don't have to scream to take your life back. You just have to stop giving it away to someone who doesn't value it. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are a man worthy of respect, love, and freedom. And if no one has ever said that to you before, let this be the first time you finally hear it. There is strength in walking away. There is power in naming abuse for what it is, even when no one claps for you. There is honor in protecting your soul. Even when the world tells you to stay silent, you don't have to scream to take your life back. You just have to stop giving it away to someone who doesn't value it. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are a man worthy of respect, love, and freedom. And if no one has ever said that to you before, let this be the first time you finally hear it. If this message resonated deep within you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition, then don't let it fade. Like this video. Share it with a brother who needs to hear this truth. Subscribe. If you want more content that cuts deeper than comfort, that confronts instead of flatters. And if you believe in this work, if you want more philosophy, more truth, more unfiltered guidance for men, then consider donating to support it. The link is in the description. This isn't entertainment. This is a calling. And you are part of it now. Millions of men are still asleep, caught in the silent trap of emotional abuse. And you, yes, you, Kabai, may be the reason they finally wake.